Hi, this is Kirsty from Beachcombing. Week 5 was full of a lot of fun adventures, so get ready for a long video this week. We left my sister's house in southern Maine and we headed north with a fun stop along the way at Karen and Andy's house to see their collection from their international beachcombing travels. So many great treasures. We got a peek at their beautiful home and we saw Karen's studio where she creates her artwork, and they sent us off with some famous Maine whoopie pies. Our next stop was a visit to Scott in the cute town of Belfast on Penobscot Bay. Scott gave us a quick tour of the waterfront. We looked for sea glass on the beach near an old window factory, and Scott showed off some of his cool beachcombing finds when we got back to his office. And with that, we crossed the border into Canada and checked into our hotel in St. John, New Brunswick. Bright and early the next morning, it was actually kind of foggy, I met up with Carla, the organizer of the St. John Sealass Festival. We left the beach buzz next to her Seagal car while we searched for sea glass on one of her favorite beaches. Looking at all the old trash on the beach, you can see why Carla still finds remnants from a town dump in the form of sea glass on this beach. We then headed to another beach in St. John, where the beach is covered with beautiful purple-colored rocks and where I found a beautiful teal piece of sea glass. This is the beach that Carla wrote about in her article for Beachcombing, where she got caught unawares by the incoming tide and had to swim her way to safety. We made a quick stop to take a peek in Carla's art studio and meet her assistant, Bandit, before heading off for a visit to Uptown St. John. We had a delicious breakfast at the city market. Then we headed over to the port to check out the Area 506 waterfront container village. All the shops were closed, unfortunately, but the colorful containers looked very friendly on that foggy day. Thanks to Carla for the tour of the beaches and the city of St. John, and hope she has a great time at her Sealass Festival this month. We then drove north along the coast of the Bay of Fundy. We made it to Hopewell Rocks at just the right time to hike down to the bottom of the bay while the tide was out. It was really cool looking at the formations above us. They are carved out by the waters of the highest tides in the world going in and out. As the rain started to fall, we continued north through New Brunswick and across the Confederation Bridge to Prince Edward Island. We drove through the torrential rain in the dark and finally arrived and checked into our B&B and got ready for our Surrey adventure. We woke up to bright sunny skies and got our first glimpse of PEI's red sand beaches. But our first destination was the Mermaid Tears Sealass Festival. Formerly held on the grounds of the Surrey Lighthouse, the festival is now held in the Sportsplex, which you enter through a cool underwater scene. It was great meeting up with old and new friends. First was meeting Jackie Trimper for the first time in real life. She was showing off her beautiful sea glass mosaics, her book, and teaching mosaic making classes. A highlight was hearing Mike Barron's talk. He talked all, and I mean all, about sea glass. Very, very fun talk. You should check out his YouTube channel. Mike was busy all weekend helping people identify their sea glass and sharing his extensive knowledge, enthusiasm, and collection. I also ran into Vicky, who had traveled all the way from Alaska for a beachcombing vacation in the Maritimes. Last time I saw her was at the Sealass Festival in Seattle. After spending time at the festival, we met up with the Gallant sisters. Their mom and dad had 8 daughters and 6 sons. The girls grew up on PEI and they still get together to enjoy laughter-filled meals and hit the beach and search for sea glass. One of the sisters, Carmela, has an adorable gift shop in the keeper's house at the Surrey Lighthouse. The shop's filled with jewelry, art, designs, accessories, and bottles filled with sea glass from the local beaches. On the second floor of the lighthouse is her Story of Sea Glass exhibit. It has sea glass, pottery, metal, and more from beaches all around the world. Carmela and her sisters, brothers, and mother found a lot of the beach treasures in the display, and a bunch of them were donated by beachcombers from near and far away. On the other side of the room are all kinds of bottles and glassware that illustrate the many different sources of sea glass found on the beach. After seeing the display, we were inspired to hunt for our own PEI sea glass, so Anne-Marie took us to our favorite secret cove. We had a wonderful dinner at Carmela's house, and then we headed back to our B&B to rest up for our second day in PEI. We decided to head out after breakfast to explore the beaches on the eastern end of Prince Edward Island. They were lined with beautiful sand dunes with the signature red sands and colorful rocks on the beach, and we even found a few pieces of sea glass. And we had fun shuffling our feet on the beaches to make the sand sing. We made it to the furthest point north and east on our cross-continental road trip when we got to East Point Lighthouse. While we were there, Matt climbed the lighthouse and I watched the seals frolicking in the waters. My favorite part, of course, was a display in the lighthouse where we could take a piece of frosty sea glass. On the way back to Surrey, we saw potato fields and plenty of beautiful wildflowers, and even a couple of Highland coos. Once back in Surrey, I headed back to the festival for day 2 and the sea glass contest. I had brought a few of my favorite pieces with me on our road trip to enter in the contest. There were so many cool pieces in the contest, from sea glass to sea pottery to bottles to metal and more. I was extremely honored when my chunky frosty teal piece of California sea glass won Best Beach Find. And with that, the 2025 Mermaid Tears Sealass Festival was done. The next day, we met up with Anne Marie, Anita, and Anita's husband Willie at Evergreen Cafe. It was great seeing Anita again, and I brought the winning piece so she could see its beautiful teal color. Next door is a small museum about local history, and Anne Marie showed where her dad is mentioned. On our last night in Surrey, we were invited along on a fiddling fisherman, lobster lover sunset boat tour with the family. Captain J.J. Chasen took us out on his boat, Chasing a Dream, where he proceeded to haul out a lobster trap filled with live lobsters, cook them in fresh water direct from the bay, and then entertain us with stories, music, and even playing the spoons. I brought along the winning piece of sea glass and promised it to Carmela so she could add it to the Story of Sea Glass exhibit at the Surrey Lighthouse. Anita and Willie celebrated their 57th wedding anniversary with a dance on board. Carmela demonstrated the proper technique of throwing the lobster shells overboard after eating the meat, and we watched the sun go down after a perfect sail. After the sail, we said goodbye to the sisters. The next day we packed up to leave, but I took a side trip to the Surrey beach to take photos of my winning sea glass piece on the red sands before dropping it off with Anne Marie to give to Carmela. And with that, we started our trip back home. We hit 6,000 miles on the way back, right before crossing back into the U.S. at St. Stephen, where you can be in Canada on one side of the river and see the U.S. across the way. We drove all the way from Surrey, PEI, back down to the southern end of Maine, arriving tired and with a van full of red PEI beach sand. We had a really fun week of beachcombing, and we're looking forward to the rest of our trip. We will be coming to you from the road as we head back to California. Happy beachcombing and have a great day.